Good afternoon, fifth grade friends. Welcome back. I am Mrs. Matani, and I'm so excited to have all of you back today. If this is your first day watching us, welcome. We're excited to have you here. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. My goodness, Saturday was absolutely beautiful. Yesterday was a little bit hot, but man, it was a wonderful weekend. So I hope you all were able to get out and get some exercise and breathe in fresh air. And now we're back to learning. Today, we're going to move forward with fractions. Now, the cool part about this for the next few weeks is that we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions and multiplying and dividing fractions, which you've already done. So we're going to do that starting today. I have a very special visitor with me today as well. Her name is Mrs. Gregory. Mrs. Gregory is a student teacher from South Alabama, and so she's going to teach you all today. So we're very, very excited to have Mrs. Gregory here. If you want to wave to the camera.
Hey.
All right, she's ready to go. All right, so let's take a look at our essential concept number 3. So we're going into the next set of concepts that Mobile County says is really important for 5th graders. And remember, the whole purpose of this is to get you guys ready for 6th grade. You are so close to getting prepared for 6th grade, and I'm so proud of you. Today we're going to look at 5NF1, which is simply adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators by replacing given fractions with equivalent fractions in such a way as to produce an equivalent sum or difference of fractions with like denominators. That's a lot. All I'm going to tell you is when you find the sum, you add. When you find the difference, you subtract. And we're going to look at fractions today that have different denominators and figure out how to add and subtract them by finding like denominators. But before we do that, we have to look at our exit ticket from last Thursday. Every single week I'm going to check your exit tickets. So last Thursday the exit ticket was use the graph of corresponding terms of pattern A. Remember what I said about pattern A? It's always along the x-axis, no matter what. And pattern B is always along the y-axis. Write the first 5 terms of each pattern. Explain how you found the terms. So if you take a look at this one, look at pattern A and pattern B. Pattern A, the first one is here, 0, 0. So remember, we write in. Oh, and I meant to tell you this, the smart board is not being very smart today. You know, technology sometimes is not very smart. So today, if anything happens with the smart board, I'm sorry. I'm going to attempt to write on it right now. So we're right here at the origin. So we have 0 for x, 0 for y, and so our coordinating terms, right, our ordered pair is 0, 0, and that is our first set of terms for A and B. Then we go over the x, up the y, over 3, up 2, 3, 2. Then we go over 6, up 4, 6, 4, and then over 9, up 6. All right, so I hope that you all got that with your last exit ticket on Thursday. And now we're ready to move forward with fractions, adding and subtracting fractions. I'm gonna let Miss Gregory take it away. I might kind of come in and out to kind of help her with some things or to talk about different ways to look at fractions, but we're ready when you are.
Alrighty. Okay, so our brain teaser for today is to solve the following equations and simplify if needed. So you probably remember this from way back earlier this semester, but we're gonna kind of refresh our brains today. So as you see here, these fractions are kind of wonky looking. We're not used to seeing them like that, but that's okay. That's another way you can look at fractions. So I'm just gonna write them out like you're used to them. So we have 4/9 plus 2/9. So if you remember, all you do since you have 9 as your denominator here, you just add 4 plus 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and then you leave the denominator, so you get 6/9, and that is your first answer. Number 2 here is 5/8 plus 1/4. But if you notice here, you have 5/8 plus 1/4. 1/4, well, our denominators aren't quite the same. So we have to kind of figure that out first before we can move into solving the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the least common multiple here. And I'm going to start with 4, and then I'll move on to 8. So with 4, I know 4, 8, 12, 16, sorry, and 20. I think that's plenty. So let's go down to 8. So I have 8, 16. Oh, okay. And I think that I found my least common multiple here being 16. So now I can go down here and turn 5/8 into something over 16 and 1/4 into something over 16. So in order to get 16 here, I had to multiply 8 by something, which is 2. So that means that I have to do the same to the top. So 5 times 2 is 10. So that's my first fraction. Then 1/4, I had to multiply this 4 down here to get 16, and that is 4. So I have to do the same on top, and this is getting kind of wonky, I'm sorry. So we have 4/16 and 10/16, but I'm not done, I still have to add. So I have 10/16 plus 4/16, and that gives me 14/16.
Okay, let's take a look at that for just a second. All right, she put up here to simplify if needed. Let's first take a look at the first set of fractions and then the second set of fractions, okay? Taking a look, here we have 6/9. I want you to visualize right now what a fraction bar would look like broken up into 9 sections. Can you make that fraction bar have less sections, more simple sections to really understand it? Yeah, you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to erase for just a minute because like we said, we told you it was a little bit crazy today. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to look at our 6/9. So remember that 6/9 is our fraction that we're trying to simplify. There it is. I have my bar and I'm going to break it into ninths. Remember what I said, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. There's my 9 sections. I'll try a different color to color it in. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the 9 sections are colored in. I'm now going to think about a way to make this bar look more simple. Again, this is wonky and I'm sorry about this. But if we look at ninths, think about a way to break 9 into something smaller. I'm thinking of factors of 9, and I'm thinking of 1 and 9, but I'm also thinking of the number 3. If I broke this fraction bar into thirds, notice the bar size does not change. If I have 3 sections and I color in 2 of the 3 sections, are those equivalent? Yeah, so 6/9 is the same thing as 2/3. And if you think about it, it's easier to look at something broken up into thirds than it is broken up into ninths. Now looking down here, I'm so glad that she did this. She chose 16 as a multiple that she thought was the smallest. Is there another multiple that we could use though to make it even more simple? Because the whole purpose is to make our fractions as simple as possible so that we can visualize them. Yeah, we have 5/8 already, and if you look here, we have an 8 here as well. So 1/4 would be the same thing as 2/8. If I add those together, I have 7/8. Now, Miss Gregory has 14/16. Is that the same thing? 7 times 2 is 14. Whatever I do to my numerator, I always do to my denominator. and 8 times 2 is 16. So yeah, they're the exact same. But if I were to try to draw a bar, which bar would be easier and more simple to draw? A bar with 8 sections or a bar with 16? Yeah, 8. So we have really the most simplest form we can get, as simple as we can get. We have 2/3 and 7/8. All right, so how'd you do with the brain teaser? Do okay? All right, we're going to move on now.
All right, so some key vocabulary that you need to know is, starting with numerator, the number above the fraction bar. So that's this number right here. So the 3, if you have 3/5, the numerator is the one on top. You should already know that, but it's just a little refresher. Then we have denominator, the number under the fraction bar. So if this is our numerator, then this is our denominator. So 5 and 3/5 would be our denominator. A factor is a number we can multiply together to get another number. A fraction is a part of a whole or a number of equal parts. So here you have 3/5. That means I have 5 pieces, five pieces in a whole, and I have 3 of those pieces shaded in, kind of like the bars that Ms. Matani did. And then you have product, the answer when you multiply numbers together. A unit fraction is a fraction in which the numerator is 1, so that means this number right here would be a 1. That's called a unit fraction. Multiples are what you get after multiplying a number by another whole number. And then a common denominator is when a fraction and another fraction have the same denominator. So now we're going to add fractions on a number line. So we have 1/4 and 3/8. So I'm just going to rewrite those here. Okay? So I have 1/4 plus 3/8. But first I'm going to fill in my number line. So I have 0 and I have 1. And this right here would be what? 1/2. Good. So I have 1/2. But I need to make sure that I have 4ths and 8ths because I need to find that common denominator first. So I'm going to start with 1/4, or with 4ths, I'm sorry. So if I have 1/2 here, how can I get a 4th out of this? That's right, if I cut this in half, that gives me 1/4. And then I have 2/4, and then I have 3/4, and then I have 4/4. Okay? So I have my 4ths, and this is where I'm going to start because that's the first number that I have to add. But I'm not done because I still have 3/8. So how could I make this into 8ths? Well, that's nice. If I cut this up, I can get 1/8 here. And this is 2/8. This is 3/8. This is 4/8. We got 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. So now my number line is complete. I can go on with this problem. So I have 1/4 plus 3/8. So I have my 8ths here, so I can go 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and I land on 5/8. So I could say that 1/4 plus 3/8 equals 5/8. Another way I could have done this is, since 1/4 is the same as 2/8, then I could have just added the 3/8, and that would have also given me 5/8. All right, now let's try subtracting. So we have 2/3 minus 4/9. So we're going to start by breaking this up into thirds. We have our 0 here and our 1. And I have 1/3, 2/3, and then my 3/3. But I'm not done because I still have to have my 4/9. So, oh, and I forgot to. Oh, it's not minus. Sorry.
There you go. Oh, it worked.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Minus 4/9. Okay, so now I still have to break this up some more. So I'm going to have Okay, 1/9, 2/9, 3/9, 4/9, 5/9, and I'm a little off, but bear with me. 6/9, 7/9, 8/9, and 9/9. So now I'm starting at 2/3, and I have to get all the way to 4/9. Well, 4/9 is all the way over here, so I'm going to subtract. I have to go this way, so I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, and I land here, and that gives me 2/9. So I can say that 2/3 minus 4/9 equals 2/9.
All right, before we go on, I wanted to ask you guys to take a look for just a second. Notice that we have a number line, and the number line never changes. It's the same size. Number lines and fraction bars never change. They're the same size. This number line starts at 0, and it ends at 1. But notice what Ms. Gregory did. She broke this number line first up into thirds because that's what she saw. She saw 2/3. So she broke the number line into 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. And then notice what she did. She then broke that same number line up into ninths. And then she had 1/9, 2/9. Notice this 1/3, if you think about it, is 1/3 equivalent to 3/9? Yeah, because I could take that numerator for 1/3 and I could multiply the numerator by 3 and the denominator by 3, and I would get 3/9. So that's why this number line works. The number line was broken into thirds, but it was also broken into ninths for you to see how to add and subtract, in this case, on the number line. Well, now Mrs. Gregory is going to show you the standard way of addition and subtraction. The best part about this is when you're in 5th grade, a lot of times your denominators aren't that easy, right? You might have a denominator that is 8 and then a denominator that is 11. So right now she's going to remind you of the standard way to add and subtract fractions.
All right, so let's look at this problem. And again, I'm going to just quickly put them in the way you're used to them. So we have 3/7 plus 4/5. So obviously we can't do anything yet because we haven't changed our denominator. So we're going to have to first find our least common multiple. Uh-oh. Okay. So we have 7 and we have 5. I'll start with 5. So I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. I think that's plenty. Let's go on to 7. So I have 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Well, here I have 35 and 35, and that seems to be our least common multiple, so that's what we'll use. So I have 3/7, and that's going to become something over 35. And then I have 4/5, and that's going to become something over 35. So I'm going to, how do I figure out what I multiplied this by to get 35? Well, one way I can do that is look back over here. I have 7. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 5 is 35. So I can go back. 7 times 5 is 35. What I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. So times 5 is 15. And then I can do the same for this, but I just know my 5, so I know that that's 7. And also, hey, so 5 times 7 is 35, so that means I have to multiply this by 7 as well, and that gives me 28. So now I'm ready to add. So 15 35ths plus 28 35ths equals, well, what's this though? We have to add. If you can add in your mind, I encourage you to do that, but if not, then you can just add it up here real quick. That's going to give me 43 over 35. Now, obviously, 43 is bigger than 35, so I'm not going to leave it like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on over here because I'm running out of room. Sorry. So one way I could do this is say 43 over 35 or 43 divided by 35. So, or I'm sorry, yeah. So I have 35, 43. Well, I can only put 35 into 43 once. So I get 13 and 5. That gives me 8. And then, let's see. Okay, so I have 1 and 8/35. So my answer is 1 and 8/35. That was a big problem, but if you know your multiples, then that'll really help you out. Do we? Yeah. Okay. All right, so now we're going to look at subtracting fractions. So I have 19/20 minus 1/4. And again, I have to find the least common multiple.
Can I say something for just a second, though?
Yes, ma'am.
She is right. She has to find the least common multiple. That's correct. But I also want to ask you guys this. When you look at the number 20 and the number 4, what do they both have in common? They both have the number 20 in common, don't they? So what we could do is say this is where 20 is. 20 starts at 20 and 4 starts at 4, right? So if 20 is the lowest we can go, because 20 times 1, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think that we could maybe just say, okay, let's use 20 as our common denominator because we have 20 and 4. Yeah, so let's try that. Let's go ahead and put 19/20.
Okay. Minus something over 20. So what did I get here? Or how did I get 20 out of 4? Well, I had to multiply by 5. Hopefully you know that already. So 1 times 5 is 5. And then you have 19 minus 5 equals 14 over 20.
Okay. Now take a look at 14/20. Again, to simplify, could we make that more simple? Absolutely. Think about 14 and think about 20. I automatically think of them as even numbers. So if I divided that in half, if I tried to make that fraction bar in my mind more simple, instead of having 20 sections, could it maybe have 10 sections? Yeah, so 14/20, something equivalent would be 7/10. All right, very, very quickly, let's go over and let's take a quick look. Let's go ahead past that.
Okay, pass this one too?
Yes,
Okay.
We're going to take a quick look at your exit ticket, okay, boys and girls? So take a look, if you would, Miss Gregory, line up their exit ticket so that they can see what to do, so that on Thursday, when it is time for us to check your exit ticket, you'll have all your information that you need. All right? So she has 2/5 plus 1/10, and then she has 7/8 minus 5/16. So you're finding the sum of these two fractions and you're finding the difference of these two. Before you work this out, I want you to stop and think to yourself, what would be easier to me? Finding the common denominator like we showed you today, maybe drawing it out on a number line, or maybe because these numbers are compatible, maybe you are able just to look at it and figure that out. All right? All right. We are so grateful that you joined us today. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our exit ticket. I'm going to ask to see it on Thursday. Make sure that you give a wave and a clap for Miss Gregory. She did a great job today. It's very nerve-wracking being on camera, especially with a smart board that's kind of not smart today. So Miss Gregory did a wonderful job. All right, boys and girls, remember to send me any brain teasers. If you come up with a really cool fraction problem you want me to share, email it to me, kmatani@mcpss.com. And remember, you are smart, you are capable, and you are getting closer and closer to being ready for 6th grade. So we will see you on Thursday.